Welcome everyone! So happy to have you listening in. My name is Frida Ihreblom and I work as a Senior Customer Success Manager at Alva Labs. With me today I have Malcolm Burenstam Linder, Alva CEO and founder, but also Kajsa Asplund, our people lead scientist with a PhD in talent management. So happy to have both of you here.
Likewise.
Likewise.
So today we're going to talk about our launch. We are launching something really big, Alva Labs AI hiring system. And we have spent close to a decade on building towards this launch for us. As you probably know, we started up as a psychometrics testing company, focusing a lot on personality tests, but also the logical ability test. We have partnered up with researchers such as Paul Sackett, whose meta-studies on selection methods have really shaped our methodology here at Alva. We are extremely proud to be DNV certified at international standard, and we have actually gotten up to 650 customers today, with 1.5 million candidates who have done the Alva Labs assessments. And all of that science and all of that kind of background that come with us, we have decided to kind of wrap that up into an entire hiring system. So this is basically a launch conversation, and we are really excited to share with you what we have built and of course why we have built it, and also apply that to your specific context, what it means to you as a TA partner and a TA leader. Of course, there's going to be room for Q&A towards the end, so think about your questions, submit them, and we're going to be happy to answer. But I think we're going to take a step back first, kind of look at the bigger picture, why we are here. And you, Malcolm, you have always talked a lot about, hiring as a business critical activity. And I love when you say that, like hiring and recruitment should be seen as a privilege and the most important decision that a company makes. Can you elaborate a little bit more on why the importance?
Right, and we're very excited to be here and speak to everyone about what's coming, the next chapter of Alva. And I think the key sort of core principle idea is that the team you build is ultimately the company that you build. So if that is true, then hiring is the kind of meta problem in any business, like the one thing that ultimately impacts everything else in the business. So getting this one thing right has a tremendous impact. So that's why I am, at least myself, and I think the Alva team at large is like really passionate about helping our customers to kind of perfect and ultimately solve that challenge that is still, hiring the right person. And we've been obsessed about that problem now for almost a decade, with the science as a core backbone, the guiding star in how to ultimately design and run the hiring process to yield the best possible results. And we're now just very excited to expand from what has been the core for now many years, our assessments and kind of psychometric assessments, but also broader assessment suite, but now also really helping customers to build a system around that scientific core from the start to the finish of the hiring process.
Exciting. A little bit more holistic approach, like end to end.
Right.
Bigger problem to solve together.
Yes.
Cool. Love that. And also, I think that it's important to bear in mind that we put a lot of effort into hiring within talent acquisition, loads of expertise and knowledge, and it's still really challenging. Despite all of these time, efforts, investments, I think that the hiring decisions, we haven't really cracked the code yet. It's still hard to kind of ensure the quality of hire at the end of the day. So Kajsa, you spend a lot of time within research, close to science. So just curious to get your input on that. Why doesn't hiring decision become significant better when there's so much work and effort behind it that we want to improve? How come it doesn't really work in practice?
That's a great question. And I think in essence, it comes back to the fact that hiring is still, despite talent acquisition's best efforts, a really noisy process. And there's actually a whole book on this concept of noise by Daniel Kahneman and Cass Sunstein and Olivier Sibony. And basically noise is about this involuntary variability in judgments that ideally shouldn't be different, right? So imagine two recruiters coming to vastly different conclusions about the same candidate, or the same recruiter coming to vastly different outcomes depending on whether he or she was hungry when they interviewed the candidate or not, right? So we have all this noise that constantly creeps into the hiring process. Not to mention the fact that there are so many chefs involved, right? You have the hiring manager, you have the recruiter, you have the manager's manager, and you have loads of different tools. And all of this leads to a super noisy process, even though, quite paradoxically, we've known for decades how to reduce noise. That is all about structure. That is all about using defined role criteria, like specifying beforehand what you're actually looking for in the role, using evidence-based assessments and combining them in like a structured manner. I think the pickle is that for the longest time, even though we knew this from research, it was so hard to implement it. And that's been a lack of technology rather than science, right? But now, excitingly, the tech actually exists.
That really, really resonates with what I hear when I speak to TA leaders and TA partners every single day. Like, they know for sure how this should work in theory, but it is a challenge to kind of translate it into practice and also to make it stick over time. So I think that we should talk also about what changes when TA is set up for success and has the right preconditions and a full system supporting that. So Malcolm, could you take us through what we have built?
Right, of course. So as we said in the beginning here, the core of Alva, where we started out, was really to build the best psychometric assessments in the world, which we've been, working tirelessly at perfecting, and which I think I am at least very proud of what we've built. So really a portfolio now today of assessments that are like validated, certified, and really, really powerful on their own. But what we've seen is that the challenge really is for many organizations still, even though if they rely fully or partly on Alva's assessments, is the system around it. Like the data points, even though valid on their own, are too often kind of disconnected in the final decision. And there's no real red thread from what we actually set out to look for. Take that as a starting point in any recruitment process, right? We have this open seat. What is it that we're looking for? What does great actually look like? Within that bucket, you have a sort of variation of sort of quality. If you look at how customers run hiring today, everything from very well written job descriptions and sort of job analysis done, but typically in a Word document somewhere, or on the other hand, of the spectra, kind of YOLO, you kind of put up a job ad and you go. Depending on where you are on that process, what's still true is that typically when we kind of audit what actually happens in the process, even though we might use Alva in some or many of the steps in the actual assessment process, there's a very sort of poor connection to that initial job analysis, to the job description. What does great actually look like? And then each of these assessment points are kind of isolated, floating around in a sea of competing data points and signal that the hiring team kind of collects during the process, which ultimately hampers the quality of the final decision making. So this is kind of the core problem that we've seen again and again. The system around our assessments that we deliver to our customers. So if you look at the typical tech stack, right, there's an applicant tracking system, there's one or multiple assessments that are plugged in, and then a variation of different tools that are plugged in. Most of the kind of tech and support that the TA team has is purely sort of designed to help with that administrative work, like the managing people from point A to point B, where very few parts of the tech stack and the process aims to say who's the right person for the role. So what Alva now delivers is a full hiring system, end-to-end, from defining what great actually looks like, designing a tailored process based on that role description, then leveraging our suite of assessments to measure the right thing with the right method, and ultimately making sure that the decision we make it on all the data that we collect and gather throughout the process, but it's also connected to what we agreed, what we aligned in the beginning. This is what predicts performance in this very role. So really making sure that the science really comes through from start to finish in the full hiring process.
It's kind of built on like the foundations of the science really and the quality. Great. I think everyone gets curious to understand a little bit more in depth what does mean and how it looks like in practice. So would you mind, Kajsa, to walk us through that?
Certainly. So just to reiterate what Malcolm is alluding to here, everything is based on this sort of 5-part loop of define, attract, assess, decide, and improve. And if we take it from the first step then, which is define, it all starts before you see a single candidate. Because what we first and foremost want to help you with is to define what you're looking for, which is the core sort of prerequisite to know when you find it. So we will take whatever you got, a sticky note, a note from a kickoff meeting, a full job ad, a few scribbled down notes, and the system will transform that into a full role requirements profile. And we will also sort of codify that into the framework that we know from science, sort of structures talent, if you will. So that's the first step in the system, to get a full job requirements profile, to know exactly what we're looking for. And then the system takes it from there. It writes the full job ad, if you don't have one. It will enrich your job description, if need be. And then something happens that I think is pretty cool. Even before you start sort of filling up your funnel, the system will match this requirements profile to a pool of 550,000 candidates from Alva Marketplace. So even before you go out and start searching, you will see candidates with high role fit showing up in your list. And then we're moving on to the assessment part. And here, of course, the core sort of secret sauce is the evidence-based assessments. So DMV certified psychometric tests, great structured interviews where the interview templates are generated based on your job description and not some generic one. And also this great functionality of actually weighting these different assessments before you actually start assessing candidates. So you do what research has always taught us to do. Decide beforehand what you're looking for and what is most important in order to gain a better outcome. All of this is also ISO certified, I should mention, according to both the assessment process and also the information security. So your legal department will not have a lot of problem with this, which can be good to know as well. And then once you start sort of moving your candidates through this assessment process, you will see as they go how their role fit evolves. So based on our sort of custom algorithm for how to combine methods, which candidates actually turn out to have the highest fit. And this is of immense help, obviously, when you come to the decision stage, because instead of sitting there with 100 spread out data points, which might seem contradictory, really hard to sort of process for the human mind, you will end up with one structured composite score that takes it all into account. And then, and this is the step that most companies skip over altogether, you have the improvement loop. So a few months in, Alva will start sending surveys to the hiring manager to see how is this candidate actually faring. Who stayed, who left, who starts performing, who shows high potential, and so on. And this all connects back to the methods and the data that you collected in the assessment process, right? So you can actually see what predicted performance and what didn't. What will you want to adjust for the next round? So that's basically it.
And just to double click on the improve stage, which is perhaps one of the things that I'm most excited about. I think I had it on a PowerPoint slide 9 years ago when talking to investors, like this is the holy grail when you actually close the feedback loop from predicting to actually then following up. And then, sort of improving the system and the model in itself. I think it's this idea that we help our customers go from 0 to 1. That's the kind of general scientific insight that we can all rest assured to begin our journey on. But then what we're really excited about, and what we also do see among our customers, is what's the contextual aspects that are perhaps slightly different. A few elements that might be more or less predictive in this specific role in your environment for a variety of reasons. So this notion of 0 to 1, best of breed from the scientific literature, but then the sort of compounding improvement loop that just continues within a company, but also over time across our customer base.
Yeah, that's what everyone is aiming for, right? To constantly learn and improve. Thank you so much for explaining. So we have had a lot of customers with us on this journey. So thank you for that, for partnering up and for trying out this new system. And we want to share a little bit around what they are saying about the system, their experience, and the feedback that they have provided to us. Because it has been very valuable for us to getting that input and to try it out in real life. So I have 3 customers that I want to mention, and the first one is talking a lot about this connected system effect, they call it. So basically they had a situation before Alva's hiring system where no system really talked to each other. They had HES, of course, aiming for that to be the kind of source of truth, but it also had a lot of docs, and there was spreadsheets, and there's information in emails and in chat functions and other assessment tools. I think everyone can relate to this. It's a little bit all over the place and scattered, I would say. So this customer moved into then the hiring system, tried it out, and basically they could see then recruitment finally scaling up, because recruiters were so much more efficient and effective, so they were able to reduce the time to hire, which is extremely important metric, absolutely, but they could also see that the quality of hire increased at the same time. So a win-win, I would say, down with the time and up with the quality with the hiring system. So definitely a success story to be proud of. And then we had another customer who was talking a lot about the hiring manager adoption part, where they saw a big challenge to kind of get the hiring managers on board and to fully commit and to adopt to recruitment, basically, to kind of get them involved and engaged. So they tried out the hiring system, TA were amazed, and then they could see that within just a few weeks, the hiring managers actually followed. So they were able to kind of proactively ask for getting access to the system. They were really, really inspired and saw the value themselves because they simply loved what they saw. So they were explicitly asking for it. So definitely something for that customer to feel proud of. And then we had the third one, talking about decision quality as one win with the hiring system. And they had a situation a bit similar to what you talked about, Malcolm, where they wanted to learn from the hires that they had made. So they saw one hire who actually didn't perform as expected, a bit of a mishire, a fail basically, which happens from time to time. And then they tried out to hire with the hiring system instead, and they had the same role and could then see a concern. So the assessment kind of flagged a red flag, this is something you should look into. And the TA team was then actually able to make a more informed decision before considering hiring that candidate. So same role and same red flag, but it was actually caught this time proactively. And I think that's really where you wanna get, and that's when you are adding value as a TA partner. So the theme basically for those 3 customers is really this the entire holistic system, not scattered data and information all over the place, but also hiring manager adoption. TA doesn't live in a silo. It's definitely a teamwork to make recruitment happen. So hiring managers on board. And then finally, the quality of hire theme here, to see the red flags throughout the process and not when someone actually turns from a candidate into an employee. Then it's a bit too late. So I think very exciting to hear about this feedback. And again, thank you to all the customers who have helped us on this journey. So I'm curious, Marcus, if you want to share a little bit about, as a TA leader, like how would you actually feel that the hiring system would impact and change your day-to-day life?
Yeah, I think the day-to-day that many TA leaders that we speak to and work with on a daily basis feel that they want to have a strategic impact on the business, be a sort of sparring partner to their leaders, hiring managers. They're the expert in the room on how to hire well and kind of help the manager or the department head to build a world-class organization. So that is what I hear mostly, in different words perhaps, that TA leaders or TA managers aspire to do. But given a constant pressure to do more with less, fewer TA managers per hire made is a trend we've seen now for a few years. The reality is something different, where TA managers typically find themselves very stressed and bogged down with very hyper operational administrative tasks, and in like the worst case scenario, actually moving data from one system to another, copy paste, or from one system to a spreadsheet or vice versa, which is obviously a waste of talent, but it's also kind of kneecapping the potential of the hiring process. So what I hope and what I think we're already hearing from customers is that most of, if not all, of that administrative work goes away, and you can move up the stack and be much more of this strategic partner to the hiring manager and rather support and challenge across these 5 different steps across the process and help the hiring team ultimately to stay on course and maximize the likelihood to find a star.
Spend your time more wisely and add more value,
right?
Basically. Love it. I think we should talk more about the quality of hire theme. We have talked a little bit about it so far, but I'm curious, Kajsa, like this is something that TA often sees as the eternal question, really, and something that you want to aim for, and that is like something we're ultimately all here to ensure. So how would you say that the hiring system would support TA in ensuring and improving quality of hire?
Well, like Malcolm alluded to earlier, I think the core feature is the feedback loop, right? Actually evaluating in a data-driven manner, how do our hires fare? Who quits? Who moves on to be a manager? Who becomes a high performer? And then systematically tying that back to the selection process to see where are we going wrong here. And that can be anything from overemphasizing a certain method to hiring managers actually not sticking to protocol when running the interviews, to individual interview questions not working out, etc. And it's only by closing that feedback loop that we can get hard data on, this is the predictive validity of our process, and this is how we are going to improve. And I think those are the types of insights that you bring to a board meeting or a management team meeting, right? Rather than saying we hired X people this month.
Absolutely. And that way you can earn the trust from the business and also earn your seat at the table.
Totally.
Love it. How about you, Malcolm? Like, for those that already are Alva users and utilize our assessments, like, what would you say to those people? Like, what does this hiring system mean to them?
It means probably that you're already on board with the sort of evidence-based methodology, right? You've probably invested in getting your organization to at least begin that journey of more evidence-based, data-driven recruitment. And we have a broad spectra here, obviously, of the maturity. So you might be on the early innings or come very far. The hiring system as a next step then really, I think, amplifies the same core fundamental thesis, right? And we have all the data and evidence to support that claim, to really make sure that the entire system, the entire process uses these tools independently in the best way, but that we actually take the full step towards a data-driven approach when it comes to talent and hiring. so it's a big step in terms of the potential upside and outcome, but the actual kind of operational changes is very easy. It's so for our current customers, it's literally just like try it on the next role, right? It's a flick of a switch and you can run your process in the hiring system end to end without any kind of migration or any technical hiccups. So it's a very easy try before you buy, if you will.
Nice. That sounds good. Easy and accessible.
Right.
Thank you so much for this. I think it's time to move on. We have probably received some questions. Let's take a look and see if we can provide some good answers, I'm sure. We have received a lot of questions. Great. Let me start with this one. Okay, so someone is asking, we are already using your tests. What happens to all our data if we switch to the full system? Could you explain that, Malcolm?
Yeah, of course. And I think I partly alluded to that. Touched on it just recently. No, but the step is very easy. No data is lost. There's full history. Migration is instant. So this is not moving from one platform to another. It's simply enabling to get access to the full suite of capabilities. So very, very easy and not a big step.
And maybe the person wonders also timeline-wise, like how long time do we talk about?
No, but I think you try with the next one or few hires. So like in 30 minutes, you're up and running with the next hire if you want to try it.
Amazing. That we like. Another question has come up here. We do structured interviews and use assessments already. Great. What is the key difference with the hiring system? Kajsa.
Yes. So first of all, great, you're ahead if you're already using structured interviews. I think the core difference that might be is whether that data generated from those interviews actually connect back to the job requirements profile, and if those data points are connected to the other assessments that you use throughout the profile, so that they can all inform a better decision, if you will. So I think the systematic approach to it all is the key difference.
Got it. Thank you for that. We have one question about hiring manager adoption, diving a little bit further into that. How do you get the hiring managers to actually follow a process? Asking for a friend. Love that. And I can probably start. I think that this is the $1 million question for many TA partners out there, like the hiring manager adoption. We have also touched upon it, but to me, I think it's important that it is simple. Like again, like TA isn't, something that only the recruitment team is owning. Like the hiring managers needs to be committed as well, and then it needs to be like that simple. So very like accessible, like user-friendly, easy to get up and running. And I think definitely Alva ticks all of those boxes. And to be honest, it would be a tool I would love to utilize when I was working actively within TA. So yeah, I think that would be my answer, like that it's straightforward, easy to use. And of course, at the same time, that it is improving the quality. Like that needs to happen at the same time for the hiring managers to buy into this. It's very good preconditions, I would say, to get them on board. Having one question here around the legal team and the compliance aspect. We mentioned a little bit around ISO, DNV certifications, but a bit more in depth. Like, Malcolm, what would you say that the TA should answer the legal team when they ask about compliance?
One can feel confident and secure that Alva is compliant and there's documentation for everything. But in short, without mentioning all the ISO certifications and all the numbers, the key thing to know is that the individual assessment blocks are, to what Kajsa said before, globally DNV certified. So we have validated that those tools by themselves are of the highest standard. Then we've also gone through a certification also by DNV, which rather looks at the entire system. So it's the full system evidence-based and designed in the way to maximize predictive validity and fairness, ultimately accuracy as a full process. So not only the individual tools. And then obviously GDPR, data privacy, we hold ourselves to the highest of standards. And we're also one of the first one, I believe, in this neck of the woods who have also certified our use of AI. So ultimately what our ambition is that our customers should be on the bleeding edge for how to utilize science, the latest science in the best way, how to best utilize the latest sort of AI capabilities in hiring. But at the same time, even that this is both kind of formally defined as a high-risk environment, like it's very important that our users, our recruiters, hiring managers, not the least our candidates, can really trust the integrity of both the AI but the tools themselves. So we have a broad set of kind of certifications to validate the entire tool.
Super. Yeah, then the TA should feel safe and secure, basically. And if they would have any questions, I'm sure they can just reach out, and we're happy to support here. Anything you want to add, Kajsa, on your end?
Well, just reiterating the scientific basis of it all. I mean, besides information security and AI use, we have actually ISO certified the assessment process per se, which I think is a pretty rare and ambitious thing to do, honestly, when it comes to a tech product. So customers can rest assured that this is based on those methods that will provide an objective and really accurate selection with as little bias as humanly possible.
Hopefully you feel more equipped now. Thank you for answering. Last question. We have a question around ATS and AI. Our ATS vendor says that they are adding AI too. Why wouldn't we just wait for that? What would you say?
Great question. So it's worth restating that ATSs are first and foremost candidate management tools, administrative tools, if you will. And it's really hard to retrofit like predictive accuracy onto a candidate management tool because the accuracy of the process doesn't come from AI use itself. It comes from standing on the shoulders of a century of research and really well-crafted selection methods in this area, right? So I think what really benefits us is that we're coming from a decade of building those methods. And that's the core difference compared to an ATS.
Very strong foundation to stand on.
Exactly.
Great questions, definitely. Thank you so much for submitting that, and thank you for answering. Anything that you want to add, Malcolm, that you haven't had the chance to say so far?
I think we have covered a lot of ground. I would perhaps add that if it's not coming through clearly, that we are very excited about this next chapter of Alva and hiring, really. Things that we've talked about in research for many decades and that Alva's worked on for a decade. I think this will, for customers adopting this and really building a predictive system for their hiring decisions, will see extremely meaningful impacts in their organizations. So I'm just very excited that we get to be part of that. And this is potentially a big fork in the road for hiring.
I'm sure. Shaping the future of hiring together. How about you, Kajsa?
Yes, I can only reinstate that we are at the verge of a new era, right? With the advent of the AI transformation. And I think it's so fascinating that one of the things that are really standing the test of time is scientific research and the methods that we have spent decades and decades perfecting when it comes to ensuring objective, accurate hiring, right? But what's so fascinating now is that when AI technology and decades of research come together, that's when we can really build a tool that makes hiring what it really is, a complex decision-making process, right? Not some administrative thing that you're running on the side. So I think now's the time for hiring to really get the credit and the status that it deserves.
Absolutely. It's a privilege, for sure.
To be sure.
Thank you, both of you. Super interesting conversation. I learned a lot. And also, thank you for listening. Really, really appreciate your time and all the great questions. So, what happens now then? If you are already an Alva customer, I'm sure we have many of you in the crowd, don't hesitate to reach out. We in the customer success team, we are more than happy to spend hours with you to discuss this and to apply it to your unique and specific context. And also, if you're new to us, if you are curious to want to find out more, don't hesitate to book a demo. We are here for you and we're happy to show you around and also to apply it to your specific situation and understand your needs better. So I hope that we will have the time to speak now, and I want to thank you a lot for taking the time to watch. Thank you both and happy Friday.
Thank you.
Thank you. Happy Friday.